Did Jesus lose his omniscience when he became a man? Now, there are some passages that seem to imply that he doesn't know things, that he has to learn things. How do we reconcile that with Jesus being the one true God who should know all things? How can we reconcile something like that to be true? Well, let's look at the verse, Mark chapter 13. This question really is raised by Mark chapter 13. Something like this, when we're talking about Jesus' return. Mark 13:32, but about the day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son of Man, but only the Father. I remember when I was talking to a Jehovah's Witness once, and I was 19 years old, and I had just started dabbling into apologetics, just starting to be able to share Jesus with people. A Jehovah's Witness approached me, and we talked about how I told him how Jesus is fully God, and took him to a passage like John 1. But what the Jehovah's Witness particularly, what he did was he said, "Oh, how could you, is God all knowing?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how can God be all knowing? How could Jesus be all knowing if he says he doesn't know something?" That particular time, I didn't know what to say because I was 19. I just became born again and got saved when I was 17, 2 years ago. And I didn't grow up really learning how to defend my faith. I grew up knowing what is true, that God exists, that Jesus died on the cross, that he rose again, the basic type of things, but I didn't actually know how to defend my faith. So he brought up this particular verse. And you may be asked to defend your faith, and you may be asked to defend Jesus as being fully God. And how are you going to do it with a verse like this? The answer really actually is easier than you may think. That it's not as complex as some may try to make it out to be. When you understand the doctrine of the incarnation, the doctrine of the hypostatic union, you can simply answer this question really easily. Because Jesus took on flesh in his incarnation, he remained God, but he added on humanity. 100% God all the time, 100% man now from that moment on all the time. Two natures infused into one person. Jesus is utterly unique. No one like him in the history of the universe. No one like him at all. We only have one nature, and we are one person, one nature. Jesus is one person, two natures. We don't know what it's like to be God at the same time, be a human being. So in Mark chapter 13, what is Jesus saying? Is he saying that he doesn't know things? Yeah, he is. But does that mean that he isn't God? No. This Jesus is speaking in regards to his human limitation. So as a human, he needed to learn. Okay, he can't just get all the free answers to the tests to be an actual human. Jesus isn't a demigod. He actually has to learn things. And when he was a kid, Luke says that he had to learn things. He grew in stature and in wisdom, had to grow. So it's perfectly fine to say, yeah, he didn't know in regards to his human limitations. But as God, he did know. But Jesus doesn't have to elaborate in every instance that he's communicating. Hey, I'm speaking actually in my human limitations, but as to my divine intellect, I do know all things. He didn't need to say that. He's more than capable of just saying he doesn't know in his human intellect, but in his divine intellect, he absolutely does know all things because he's God. Some Christians tend to think that in this particular moment, Jesus turned off his God switch and turned on his human switch and only answered as a man. That's not true. God can't turn off his God switch because if you think of it, then God would stop being God. And God cannot do that. God cannot stop being himself. Jesus cannot stop being himself. So he doesn't just turn off his divinity. He's always God all the time. And this is a paradox. Think of it this way. Jesus being God, being divine, being fully God, self-sufficient, doesn't need anything. That's what Acts chapter 17 says, that God doesn't need anything, that we should be able to ascribe anything to him. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need us. God didn't create the world because he was lonely. He doesn't need us at all. God is self-sufficient, not needing anything. But in John chapter 4, Jesus needs water. Jesus gets hungry when he's fasting. Furthermore, Jesus doesn't want to die in the Garden of Gethsemane in his human intellect. He has desire to prolong his life, but in his divinity, he doesn't need anything. In his divinity, he doesn't need food or water. In his divinity, he knows that the plan of God must be accomplished on the cross. So in regards to Mark chapter 13, Jesus not knowing something, yeah, in regards to his human intellect, he doesn't know. But in regards to his divine intellect, at the same exact time, he does know. An interesting thing, when I was in seminary, we talked about this doctrine in my Socratic approach class with Dr. Stephen Doobie. And we talked about how he said it's interesting if you think of it in this way. At the same exact time, Jesus couldn't be sick. Jesus as God can't be sick. God can't get sick. But because Jesus is man, he has the ability to get sick. And Jesus, who is God, can't die, but Jesus as a man can die and can suffer. Jesus as God doesn't need to go to the bathroom, but Jesus as a human did at points of his life, of course, being a human. So when we get the doctrine of the hypostatic union, when we get the doctrine of the incarnation, the question of Jesus losing his omniscience is answered simply by appealing to that doctrine, that Jesus didn't know something according to his human intellect, but at the same exact time, according to his divine intellect, he knows all things. So if someone were to ask you that, you could simply answer that question in that particular way. You don't need to feel scared. You can say, yeah, no, he didn't know according to being a man. But as God, he did know all things. He just didn't reveal that particular answer at that particular time and didn't need to. If you receive value from this video, like it and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you in a future video. Thanks for checking out the video today. Feel free to ask any question you want in the comments section below, or you can simply comment and provide your perspective. Also, don't forget to like this video so that it'll boost up the algorithm so we can reach a broader audience, and subscribe to this channel. Feel free to check out one of these videos. I believe they'll provide value to your life as well. And I'll see you next time.